Hello, my name is Richard Dolan, and I'm an advisor to QuestCap, who runs an initiative called MedQuest. So, for the sake of full disclosure, the purpose of our time here together today is to simply walk through a number of, conversations, what I like to call a real deal, on what's going on with this thing COVID-19, and how exactly should you be, in fact, more informed, more educated, and enlightened so that you can better equip yourself, so that you can, in fact, be more invincible and less vulnerable during these times. The first place we'd like to start with, and the basis for many of these conversations, lives with the London Business School, their recent report that was issued in partnership with the Wheeler Institute for Business and Development. They produced a report called The Economics of a Pandemic, the Case of COVID-19. And it was last updated on March 28th, 2020. And a big shout out to Paolo Sirico and Andrea Gaglietti, who in fact are professors of economics at the Business London School. Now, the purpose of the report was to break down this pandemic into four components. First, the science. Second, the health policies. The third was the economics of the pandemic at hand. And the fourth, the macroeconomic policies. For the sake of the series of conversations that we have here posted on this digital landscape, thanks to QuestCap, we want to make sure that we chunk things down, slow things up, so you can digest these insights, this knowledge, if it were, in bite-sized forms, so that they're digestible, memorable, but more importantly, actionable. Because really at this particular moment in our history, it is not just going to be the technology, the breakthroughs and the innovations that MedQuest secures, funds, or brings to the world that will really make the difference. It's going to be you. Being able to be far more informed, educated, and far more aware of what to do, rather than ignorant to the things, that we shouldn't do. And that's where we begin. Now, understandably, according to the report, we understand that the enemy at hand is this thing called COVID-19. And so the first question becomes, what is it? And for me, I needed to understand, what's the real deal? Well, simply put, it's a severe acute respiratory syndrome. In other words, aside from a common cold or even your typical flu, this lives within the respiratory tract. This virus attacks the way in which your lungs, work. And it does it in such a way that it destroys the signals. It does its worst duty by, in fact, lowering the capacity for which you can breathe. It tricks the lungs in such a way that it cannot produce the oxygen you require, making it, harder to breathe. That's why for the young and the old, it's a challenge either way, because we all need air to live. What we know is that when we start to do the research, according to the London Business School, the way in which this virus enters your body is through the nose, the mouth, or the eyes. That's why washing your hands, covering your mouth, and watching how you breathe in the air around you is so important. That's why the whole idea of, in fact, relegating yourself to a home and living in a state of quarantine has been instrumental in curbing the impact that this virus has had on communities, on commerce, and on countries. What we know is that this respiratory challenge that many are confronted by produces a new phenomenon, and that is the need for respiratory devices, ventilators, and such. And oftentimes, when you look at the medical realm and you look at that industry, they always would have predicted that they would need these respirators based on the aging demographic. Never before would they have to, in fact, prepare for so many, given the presence of such a deadly virus. And there has the basis of the challenge. Our healthcare systems are just simply not built to, in fact, support this kind of breakout, this type of disease, this type and breadth of ailment. Now, some of the basics, according to our research, thanks to the London Business School's program and their presentation, the virus appears to be, highly transmissible. And as a result, the average patient it infects is about every 1.6 to 2.4 others. In other words, you would have, if you carry the virus, are capable of infecting anywhere from 1 to nearly 3 people. And that makes it a highly infectious disease. What we know about it right now is that there's a number of current drug efforts that are going on. Everything from the world of testing to the world of vaccination and to the world of treatment. And here's all we know, that all of it is important and all of it is urgent. But it couldn't happen fast enough. As we sit here today, during this particular time in history, we notice that the curve is not flattening, but heightening. And for that reason, we are still in the response stage of the 3 stages available to us in understanding pandemics. Again, the first is reaction, where we recognize an outbreak, we try to contain the situation, we begin to monitor who's infected. The response is where we are relegated to homes, asked to self-quarantine, and in fact have the response to curb the impact that it has. So you can in fact push downward pressure on the way this unfolds rather than letting it loose and hoping it fades out. Where we need to focus on is the restoration, the return to business as usual, getting people back to commerce, back to communities, back to school, back to work, and more on that a little later on. In conclusion, what we know is that the patterns of the contagion in different countries is very simple. Everything has started from 0 and it has gone up. Every single country has not escaped unscathed, and every single country on the planet are doing everything they can to contain what they've got so that to spread what they have. What we know when it comes to all the patterns of contagion in different countries, we notice that the smaller the curve, in other words, the hockey sticking, if it were, the hockey sticking of how high it grows, how impacted people become, comes down to one thing: catching it early. Catching it early means earlier detection, not being ignorant or slow to respond, and, of course, demanding quarantine, business shutdown, enterprise, and markets alike. So what we have here, according to the London Business School, is a situation where a crisis is, in its genesis. And as much as we know that the developing economies face higher risks due to the movement of the people, is that the trend is beginning in the developing world. So what we see right now is South Africa, Egypt, Burkina Faso, Ghana, and Senegal are countries now reporting incredible spikes, incredible upticks in the number of cases reported. So this pandemic, which was first reported on March 11th, is just beginning. What is yet to be written is how it ends, and that's where you come in.